You have been meticulously sculpted. From the earliest moments of your awareness, the world began its work on you, sanding down your sharp edges, polishing your surfaces, molding you into a shape that would be pleasing to the eye and smooth to the touch. You were trained to be liked, an artisan of agreeableness. You learned to keep the peace as if it were a fragile bird held in your hands, your own breath held, lest you startle it into flight. You were taught to be good, a lesson etched so deeply into your being that it feels less like a choice and more like a fundamental law of your own physics. But the great psychoanalyst Carl Jung would look upon this carefully crafted goodness and see something else entirely. He would not see virtue. He would see a veil. He would see a mask, shimmering and beautiful, but a mask nonetheless. And he would warn you, with the gravity of a physician diagnosing a creeping illness, that if you are not vigilant, this mask of goodness will cease to be a tool and become a prison. Its elegant contours will harden into bars, and you will find yourself captive inside the very image you worked so hard to perfect. This is the central, tragic paradox of the people pleaser. You believe your compliance makes you kind, but in reality, it renders you invisible. You are a ghost haunting the hallways of your own life, ensuring the floorboards don't creak, that the temperature is always comfortable, that no one is ever disturbed. You have mistaken self-erasure for altruism. You do not gain more respect by making yourself endlessly available. You simply teach others that your time is a resource to be consumed. You do not earn more love by being effortlessly likable. You simply attract those who are drawn to the absence of a challenge. You do not cultivate more peace by remaining passive in the face of conflict. You only achieve a fragile, hollow silence that you mistake for harmony. With every accommodating nod, with every swallowed opinion, you quietly, gracefully disappear. And the most heartbreaking part, nobody notices you're gone, because the space you were meant to occupy was never truly claimed by you in the first place. You tell yourself a story of support and cooperation. You see yourself as the helpful one, the reliable one, the supportive pillar, holding up the architectures of other people's lives. But Jung would peel back the surface of this noble narrative to reveal a starker truth. With every act of selfless support for another, you are committing an act of private treason against yourself. You are abandoning the sovereign territory of your own needs. And with each betrayal, you send a clear, unspoken message to the world, a curriculum of self-neglect that others learn from with astonishing speed. You teach them that your needs are secondary, that your time is infinitely elastic, that your boundaries are merely suggestions, and that your silence can always be interpreted as consent. Carl Jung did not view this pattern as mere politeness or social grace. He saw it for what it was, the shadow in disguise. He identified it as a sophisticated, behavioral masquerade, a finely wrought persona adopted to shield the vulnerable self from the perceived terrors of rejection, conflict, or disconnection. It is a survival strategy born from fear, not a virtue born from love. But here is the brutal, immutable law of this strategy. The more you please, the more you will be used. This is not because the world is populated by villains and manipulators, though they certainly exist. It is because human beings, like water, will flow to the path of least resistance. People respond to the permissions you grant. They build their expectations upon the precedents you set. If you consistently demonstrate that you are a person without a no, a person whose own desires are muted and flexible, you are not just inviting others to overlook you, you are training them to do so. Become a shapeshifter, contorting yourself into a form that fits seamlessly into the empty spaces of everyone else's lives, plugging the gaps in their schedules, their emotional needs, their unfinished projects. You become a human utility. And then, one day you will wake up submerged in a quiet, inexplicable exhaustion. A profound weariness will settle deep in your bones, a fatigue that no amount of sleep can cure. You will feel a low-grade, simmering resentment toward the very people you've worked so hard to please. You will look in the mirror and feel a disquieting sense of fraudulence, as if you were an actor who has forgotten their own identity outside the role they play. And you will be struck by a profound loneliness, the aching realization that despite being surrounded by people who like you, nobody actually sees you. Jung had a name for this phenomenon, this mask that feels so much like you, but is, in fact, a carefully constructed interface with the world. The persona. The persona is the version of you that was expertly trained by your parents, your culture, your teachers, and your peers. It is the you that learned how to be acceptable, how to fit in, how to garner approval, how to avoid punishment, and at its most primal level, how to survive. And you needed it. Let us be clear. The persona is not an enemy. You still need it in some ways. Society functions because we all wear masks appropriate to our roles. You cannot navigate the complexities of life by acting on every impulse or verbalizing every thought. You need a mask for the office, a mask for social gatherings, a mask for navigating the delicate machinery of human interaction.
Ow.
The persona is a necessary tool for peaceful coexistence. But here lies the danger that Jung so urgently warned about, the subtle transition from using the mask to being used by it. The danger arises when you believe the mask is your identity. When the performance becomes so constant, so automatic, that you forget you are performing at all. This is the point at which you begin to lose your soul. Because your purpose on this earth is not to be a perfectly agreeable, frictionless presence in the lives of others. You are here to be real. You're not here to be a supporting character in everyone else's story, a footnote in their grand narrative. You are here to be the protagonist of your own, to write your own script, to live your own messy, inconvenient, glorious truth. But you cannot undertake this sacred work if your primary, unconscious instinct is to ensure that everyone around you remains comfortable at all times. This is the devastating calculus that people-pleasers fail to recognize until it is far too late. Every single time you avoid saying no to something that violates your spirit, you are saying a resounding yes to the slow, methodical erasure of your own self. That is the true high cost of being liked. You have been sold a lie. You think the price of speaking your mind is the risk of conflict, but the real, guaranteed cost of your silence is a lifetime of resentment. You believe that saying no is a selfish act, but the real selfishness lies in staying silent while secretly, bitterly blaming everyone else for not being psychic enough to read your mind. You imagine that making other people happy is a noble pursuit, but the true nobility is found in cultivating boundaries, so clear and so honest that no one ever has to guess who you are or what you stand for. Jung understood that psychological repression creates distortion. It's like damming a river. The water doesn't vanish. It just builds pressure and finds other, often more destructive ways to escape. When you repress your healthy anger, your valid instincts, and your authentic voice, you do not become a kinder, more enlightened person. You become a caricature, become passive-aggressive, your unexpressed frustrations seeping out in sideways comments and subtle acts of sabotage. You become bitter, your inner world soured by the acid of unspoken truths. You become disconnected from others, and most tragically, from yourself, because you know on a deep, cellular level that you are not living honestly. You are performing, you are curating, you are managing the emotional states of others instead of bravely expressing your own. Eventually your body, that unerringly honest keeper of the score, will begin to scream the truth your mouth refuses to speak. The chronic exhaustion, the burnout that feels like a spiritual depletion, the pervasive low-level anxiety, the fear of disappointing anyone, even strangers, the obsessive overthinking of every text message, every email reply, the relentless overanalyzing of every social interaction, searching for clues of disapproval. That is not sensitivity. That is the clanging of keys in the lock of your own emotional prison. The cycle perpetuates itself, growing stronger with each rotation. The more you please people, the more you normalize your own compliance. You train them to expect your submission, to see your flexibility as a given. You lower the bar for how you are treated until it is buried beneath the ground. And they will, inevitably, walk all over you. Not always because they are cruel or malicious, but because you said yes. Such convincing consistency that they stopped believing you even possessed the capacity for a no. The option was removed from their conception of you because you removed it first. You cannot be truly loved if you are not truly known. This is the devastating axiom at the heart of the people-pleaser's dilemma. The very people you are working so tirelessly to please, the ones whose approval you crave like oxygen, do not know the real you. They cannot. They know only the carefully curated, highly edited, user-friendly version you have painstakingly presented to them. They know your persona, and you live in a state of quiet terror, a fear that if you were to ever let the mask slip, if you were to allow the unedited version of yourself to step into the light, everything would crumble. So you remain in the cage, afraid to change, because you know what will happen. If you suddenly begin to set boundaries, if you start to honor your own time, if you finally voice a dissenting opinion, you will be met with confusion and then resistance. They will say, "You've changed." They will accuse you, perhaps subtly, perhaps overtly, of becoming selfish. They may even call you cold, difficult, or aggressive. But that is not the truth. The truth is that they had simply grown accustomed to the boundless expanse of your self-abandonment. They had built their comfort on the foundation of your silence, their convenience on the bedrock of your softness, their power on the architecture of your submission. When you begin to live honestly, it does not feel like honesty to them. It feels like aggression. Not because your truth is intended to harm them, but because your honesty is, for the first time, finally intended to protect you. Carl Jung would say that this moment of friction, this uncomfortable, jarring shift, is not a sign of failure. It is the most promising sign of life. This is the precise moment where individuation begins. Individuation is not a fluffy self-improvement project. It is not about becoming a better version of yourself. It is self-possession. It is the sacred, often arduous, process of becoming a full, integrated, three-dimensional human being with a spine, a shadow, a voice, and a no that carries the weight of authentic conviction. Until you embark on this journey, you will always feel slightly hollow, as if you are living a life that is not entirely your own. You will feel a persistent, low-grade sense of being off-kilter, a quiet wrongness that hums beneath the surface of your days. That feeling is not a symptom of depression, though it can certainly lead there. It is the sound of your real self, your authentic soul, trying to wake you up. It is the scream trying to tear through the fabric of your fake smiles. It is the truth trying to cut through the placating language of your agreeable emails. It is your soul trying to break out of the script you have been acting out for years, a script written by everyone but you. The only way out is to stop pleasing, to consciously, deliberately choose to disappoint. And what happens when you finally do? People will get uncomfortable. Some will get angry. Some will leave your life. Some will attempt to use guilt, that old and powerful lever, to pull you back into the soft, compliant shape they preferred. Jung's advice would be unequivocal. Let them. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them be angry. Let them leave. This is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of clarity. It is the necessary, painful process of filtering your world, of discovering who loves the real you and who only loved what you could do for them. You are not on this earth to be a public utility. You are here to be whole. You are here to say the things that need to be said, to set the boundaries that may disappoint others, but will ultimately protect your soul, and to walk away from people, situations, and roles that only valued you when you were easy to control. This is not selfishness. This is your awakening. Jung did not call it people-pleasing. He called it a betrayal of the self, because you were not born this way. You did not enter this world hoping to manage the emotional states of everyone you met. You were not designed with a factory setting of saying yes when your entire being screamed no. You were not built to suffocate your own truth just to maintain a fragile, artificial peace. You were trained into it. You were molded, conditioned, and shaped by a world that often rewards compliance and punishes authenticity. And the most insidious part of this conditioning is that you were taught to mistake it for love. You believed that staying quiet was a sign of maturity, convinced yourself that sacrificing your needs was an act of generosity. You thought that suppressing your emotions, your anger, your disappointment, your frustration was a display of strength. But the truth is, it only made you disappear. And the person that people claim to love, the person they admire, depend on, and praise isn't really you at all. It is your persona. The persona, as Jung defined it, is the functional mask you wear to meet the demands of society and navigate the world. It is not inherently false. It is a necessary component of social life. But for the chronic people-pleaser, the mask fuses with the skin. It begins in childhood, often subtly. A child learns that expressing honest frustration leads to a parent's withdrawal or punishment. They learn that having needs makes them a burden. They learn that being quiet, helpful, and undemanding earns them praise, affection, and a precarious sense of safety. So they adapt. They master the art of the placid smile when they feel like crying. They learn to say it's okay when they want to scream, "This is not okay." Make themselves small so that others can feel big. They internalize a devastating lesson. Love is not a freely given gift, but something that must be earned through relentless performance. And so the functional mask becomes a permanent identity. Modern psychology often misses the depth of this predicament. The advice is typically behavioral. Speak up more. Set clear boundaries. Take time for yourself. These are not bad suggestions, but they are like trimming the leaves of a poisoned tree without addressing the rot in the roots. Jung went deeper. He understood that chronic people-pleasing is not just a behavioral problem, it is a soul fracture. When you repeatedly abandon your true self in favor of the acceptable mask, you don't just lose your voice. You begin to lose your very sense of identity. You become haunted by terrifying existential questions. Who am I without this role of the helper? If I stop giving, what reason will people have to stay? Will anyone still love me if I finally show them what I truly feel? These are not surface-level anxieties. They are deep, primal fears because your very survival once seemed to depend on being liked. You have tragically confused being liked with being safe. But the problem is that every single time you choose the illusion of safety over the risk of truth, you chip away another piece of your soul. You become a person others can rely on, but whom no one, including yourself, truly knows. This is the secret agony of the people-pleaser. You receive a form of love, but it always feels counterfeit. It feels hollow because deep down, you know they are not loving you. They are loving the agreeable you, the reliable you, the flexible you, the you that never makes a fuss. But what happens when you are tired? What happens when you have limits? What happens when you finally, unequivocally say, "No more"? Often, the love evaporates, and what is left in its place is a chilling silence, a wave of guilt, and a tsunami of self-doubt. But Jung would lean in at this moment of crisis and say, "Good, this is the beginning of your real life. This is the breakdown that precedes the breakthrough, because this is where the work of individuation truly begins. It is the process of bravely turning around and walking back toward the parts of yourself you exiled long ago to remain acceptable. It is the journey of reuniting with your shadow, your righteous anger, your healthy selfishness, your fierce pride, your unvarnished truth. Individuation is not about achieving perfection. It is about achieving wholeness. It is the courage to finally declare, yes, I care deeply about others, but I will no longer do so at the expense of myself. Yes, I value peace, but not at the cost of my integrity. Yes, I may love you, but I will not abandon me to keep you. That is not rebellion. That is the highest form of spiritual and psychological maturity. And if someone in your life cannot handle this evolution, you must find the strength to let them go. Because Jung believed that the true self does not emerge through the warm sunlight of constant approval. It is forged in the fires of conflict. It emerges through the uncomfortable process of confronting the people who have grown accustomed to your silence. Through the necessary act of disappointing those who only loved your compliance, and through the terrifying, liberating risk of rejection in the service of becoming real. When you finally stop people-pleasing, you do not lose relationships, you lose imbalanced ones. You shed the parasitic connections that thrived on your self-abandonment. And in the space you create, you invite relationships based on respect, reciprocity, and a mutual appreciation for the whole authentic truth of who you are. By now, if you have truly listened, something inside you is shifting. A tectonic plate deep within your psyche has begun to move, grinding against a lifetime of conditioning you are starting to see, with a clarity that is both exhilarating and terrifying. How much of your life has been an intricate and exhausting performance? You see the countless moments your identity was sculpted not by your own hand, but by the need to keep others comfortable. You can feel the phantom ache of all the times you said yes when your entire body, a vessel of forgotten wisdom, whispered a desperate no. And perhaps for the very first time, you are daring to ask the question that lies at the heart of this entire journey. Who am I when I stop pleasing? Be gentle with yourself, for this is not a simple question. Answering it is not merely about changing a few behaviors. It is about demolishing and rebuilding the very foundation of who you have been trained to be. It is an act of profound rebellion against your own history. Carl Jung understood this metamorphosis better than anyone, because when you stop pleasing people, you do not just lose the comfort of their approval, you lose your former self. The mask you have worn for so long must be peeled away, and the process is rarely painless. But what rises in its place is not the cruel, selfish, or bitter person you were taught to fear. What emerges is someone real. Someone who does not need to be liked to be at peace. Someone who does not require external approval to feel a sense of intrinsic worth. Someone who can say no without the corrosive acid of guilt, and yes with the full, unburdened joy of genuine desire. That is what individuation truly is. It is not spiritual fluff or a quest for moral perfection. It is the raw, uncomfortable, and beautiful process of allowing your deepest truth to become your identity. So, how do you become that person? It is not a singular, dramatic event, but a series of small, courageous choices made day after day. Let us walk through the steps. First, you must recognize the guilt loop for what it is. When you first stop pleasing people, when you decline that invitation, when you let that text go unanswered, when you state a boundary without apology, you will feel a wave of guilt so powerful it can feel like a physical force. You will feel it as a knot in your stomach, a tightness in your throat, a buzzing in your silence. Your conditioned mind will scream at you that you are being mean, that you are letting people down, that you are doing something fundamentally wrong. Jung would urge you to see this feeling not as a moral compass, but as a physiological symptom. This is not guilt. This is withdrawal. You are an addict, and your drug of choice has been the approval of others. You are detoxing from a lifetime of seeking validation outside of yourself. You are experiencing the acute emotional and neurological discomfort of reclaiming your own power after years of outsourcing it. Of course it feels heavy. Of course it feels wrong. But that heaviness is not proof that you are making a mistake. It is proof that you are finally blessedly moving. The work is to let the guilt come. Do not fight it. Do not overanalyze it. Do not let it trick you back into submission. Acknowledge it, feel its full, uncomfortable weight, and then do the right thing anyway. Power does not return in the absence of guilt. It returns in the space where guilt no longer dictates your actions. Second, you must redefine your value. The people-pleaser's sense of worth is derived almost exclusively from a single, perilous source: their utility to other people. If you are helpful, you feel worthy. If you are needed, you feel safe. If you are liked for your contributions, you feel important. But Jung would tell you that this is not self-worth. It is conditional performance. And the immense danger of this arrangement is that the moment you cease to be useful, the moment you are tired, sick, or simply have nothing left to give, you'll feel worthless and replaceable. The work, therefore, is simple in concept, but profound in practice. You must consciously and deliberately redefine what makes you valuable. Your value does not reside in your utility. It is not located in your sacrifices or measured by your compliance. Your intrinsic, non-negotiable value resides in your truth. It resides in your presence, your integrity, your boundaries, and your courageous ability to be fully and unapologetically yourself, even and especially when it disappoints other people. That is where your real worth lives, not in what you do for others, but in what you will no longer do against yourself. Third, learn to disappoint people without apology. Let this become your new sacred milestone. Repeat it to yourself until it sinks into your bones. You can disappoint people and still be a good person. You can disappoint people and still be a kind person. You can disappoint people and still be worthy of love. You can say no without a 5-paragraph explanation. You can decline a request without offering a litany of excuses. You can state a limit without softening it to protect the other person's feelings. Because every time you soften your boundary to manage someone else's emotional reaction, you reinforce the poisonous lie that your needs are dangerous, that your limits are an act of aggression. They are not. They are sacred. Carl Jung believed that the integration of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable, is what makes a person whole. Your ability to be misunderstood, disliked, or even rejected without collapsing is a core part of that shadow work. You are not here to curate how everyone feels about you. You are here to be rooted in who you are. Fourth, start small but remain unshakable. This transformation does not require a dramatic press conference where you announce your new identity to the world. It does not require you to prove how confident you have become, or to engage in arguments with everyone who challenges your newfound spine. The most profound changes are born from small, quiet, consistent acts. Don't respond to that message right away. Let the silence breathe. Don't offer an explanation for every no. Let your decision stand on its own. Don't over-apologize for things that are not your fault. Don't offer to give more of your time, energy, or money than you genuinely want to give. Let your actions be quiet. Let your boundaries be firm. Let your peace be your guide. Soon something magical will begin to happen. People will unconsciously begin to recalibrate their expectations of you. The ones who relied on your lack of boundaries will stop pushing because the energy cost becomes too high. The ones who assumed your availability will stop assuming. The emotional vampires will stop draining you because you have ceased to be a viable source. You have, through your quiet, consistent firmness, retrained them. You have taught them that you are no longer here to please. You are here to be whole. Finally, you must embody this new standard. As you stop pleasing, you will start attracting differently. People who were drawn to your compliance, your malleability, and your self-neglect will begin to fall away. Let them. Their departure is not a loss, it is a confirmation. It is proof that you are being used, not loved. And in the space they vacate, new people will arrive. People who respect your honesty. People who match your integrity. People who support your growth and are capable of loving you for your authentic truth, not for your performance. But this transformation in your outer world can only happen if you consistently embody the new standard in your inner world. Not just once, not just when it is easy, but every single day, in every conversation where you feel that old, familiar part of you wanting to bend, to accommodate, to soften. Do not bend. Feel the urge, acknowledge the old pattern, and hold the line. Breathe through the discomfort. Because every time you choose not to betray yourself, you fortify your soul. You will stop pleasing people after this, not because you have become cold or uncaring, but because you have become conscious. Carl Jung did not want you to become cruel. He wanted you to become awake, wanted you to stop performing, to stop fawning, to stop bleeding your life force out for people who would not even hand you a bandage. He wanted you to become someone who is clear in your no, honest in your presence, and grounded in your truth, whole and complete, even if it makes others uncomfortable. For the ones who are truly deeply healed are not the ones who are always liked. They are the ones who are finally, blessedly free.